So you step into Shopify. I mean, and what were the key lessons that you were looking to pass over from the book you wrote on jazz and the parallels of business, and the kind of principles you use to approach culture and learning?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that was important in that organization, and I think is important in a lot of small organizations, and it really should actually be important in every organization, but it's the concept of a learning organization, right? Like an organization where everybody is learning all the time. It doesn't matter what level you're at, what experience you have, you're always learning. And that even when you hire people, you don't just hire people for what they know today, but for their ability to learn, because everyone will have to do it. So immediately there, I think that creates a mindset, right, where everybody is on this path of always trying to learn and accepting that they don't always necessarily have the answer to everything. And I think it also creates an organization too where people are teaching one another as well. And I think that's a really important thing too. So just as I mentioned before about having people who are both good at leading and following, having people who are both good at learning as well as teaching is really important. And in fact, one of the best ways to validate your own learning of something is to teach it to someone else, right? So I think that was always a really important thing, was the learning. And then the other thing I think that was always important was the speed, right? And now one of the things about going into an organization where you're trying to help organize things and perhaps trying to bring some and now we use the word that some people never want to hear, which is the word starting with P, the process word, right? If you ever talk about process or structure, there's a natural reaction of, don't want that. That's going to slow us down, right? And so the thing is, there are good processes and there are good ways of working that can actually help speed you up, right? And so those are the things that you want. You don't want the things that are going to slow you down. That's understandable. But if you can find the things that will actually be good and it will actually help things go better and go faster, then those are the things we want. So there was so much always around education of helping people to understand what those things are, helping them even to discover for themselves what those things are, uh, and implementing those things and not the things that would slow the organization down.
I think Shopify have two clear, or values that are clear to their culture, which is mainly, well, clearly innovation and experimentation, which they publicly announce. I mean, how do you really think about fostering innovation, whether that's in a jazz ensemble or within a team of
Yeah.
a business team?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that's important is that it can come from anywhere, right? Like you don't have this mindset that it only comes from like some innovation team or it only comes from leadership or whatever, right? Like anybody in an organization can have good ideas. So having systems where, uh, in some large organizations, they'll try to do things like they'll start small and they'll have something like a suggestion box, right? Like, or it could be a virtual suggestion box so that anybody, no matter where they are in the organization, can suggest something. And so that's a really important thing. One of the ways that they did it in Shopify, which a lot of other organizations have done similar things, is that they have these things called hack days, right? Where it would be a regular thing every quarter. They would allow everyone to take a full day to work on any project they wanted. But what you would do is you would actually propose an idea, a problem to solve, and there was actually a system to manage all this. And then you would try to bring other people to your cause, right? Get other people interested in helping you solve that problem, and that could be a problem about anything. It didn't have to be a problem about a product. It could be a problem that you want to solve or something that you want to make better about the organization. And so having something like that allows anyone to be able to present an idea and then experiment with it, test it, try it out, see where it goes. But that's a really, really powerful thing.
But it also has to be baked into the decision making of the company, right? In terms of, you can always ask people to suggest ideas, but they have to actually do it, or and
Yeah.
so you actually have to consider it or bake it into your decision. How do you organize decision making process to really take that into consideration?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that's interesting is the idea that you take an idea and you do some work on it, you experiment, you test, and you iterate on it, and that the good things bubble up, right? Um, and that and you're right, because the thing is that in a lot of organizations there's often sort of lip service around this kind of stuff. Like they'll say stuff like this, but yeah, the stuff just goes into a black hole, right? Never to be seen again. Which so that also means that in order to allow for that experimentation and allow for ideas to be developed and tested and so forth, right? That there actually needs to be time. And so various organizations, I think like IBM, for example, had like the 20% time thing. There's lots of ways to do it, but there has to be the organization has to definitely allow for it in some way, which really means that also, even if you look at it from a time perspective, it's time to be spent testing those things and experimenting and trying out things. That's not going to be time spent doing other things that perhaps are more predictable and more sure, and perhaps are operational things. Of course, you've got to keep the lights on and you've got to keep things running. But if you don't allow for this time to be able to do all this, this other experimentation and try things, then you're never going to have the opportunities of what could come from that.